Medfield TV.
Hi, and welcome to Our Town, Our Land, Our Future. This is a TV show that Gil Rodgers and I have put together to inform the public about what has been happening with the master planning process for the Medfield State Hospital. So today we're going to give you a little summary of where we are right now and where we're going. So again, my name is Lucille Fisher and I am on the Communications Resource Committee. And this is Gil Rodgers, and he is a member of the Master Planning Committee. And we're going to talk a little bit about the two options that were presented to the community on May 24th, an open meeting that we had. And Gil is going to go into some, the details of those two options. We had a terrific turnout for that meeting, 250 people approximately, and a very active engagement. And so we will talk a little bit about what we found out from that meeting and what we've been hearing over the last 2 years or so. So Gil, why don't you take it and talk about the options, the two options that were presented.
Thanks, Lucille. It's a lot of fun to do this. I mean, we've been at this for, well over a year, I guess. So
Right.
It's a great chance to kind of catch up and see where we are. Let me just say, too, about what properties we're talking about, just so everyone knows. And we have a little map here that shows that we're focusing in our conversation here about really three main areas. The core campus, which we've called A on this figure, the Sledding Hill, which is across the street, which we call B, and then the Hinckley Farm, which is down near the senior center, and then Ice House Road, lot number 3, which is next to the Kingsbury Club. And so those are the three properties we're primarily talking about. Well, let me just say a little bit about the two scenarios, just to give kind of highlights. And we have a picture here that schematically shows what they are. Now, scenario 1, we call Town Square. And Town Square because, as you see, at the north end of the campus, there's a large open space, big park area, public park area.
Which is like 3 soccer fields.
It's like 3, yeah,
Three
so it's really
soccer
big.
fields big, yeah.
And that's formed by taking down the food services building, which is a big building that we don't really fits in very well at all. So we're taking that down.
Yeah. It's not historical.
It's not historical.
Old, it's
Architecturally,
new,
it doesn't fit. It's big, but anyway, Town Square. Then around it, the buildings, which are architecturally very significant, very pretty buildings. In scenario 1, those would be put into things like apartments, condos, different mixed housing options into that kind of horseshoe that runs around that area. And then at the south end, we think that there's so much interest in arts and culture that the area around Lee Chapel and the building next to it, which we call the infirmary, that would be a very logical place for a culture, arts, maybe historic kind of setting in that area. And that would be part of scenario 1. Now, one thing that we all feel very important about is what we call the Great Lawn, the big field when
So
you
beautiful.
drive in. Yeah, where I don't know if you went to the car show.
Oh, I
but,
did. It
you
was,
know.
it was fantastic.
But we think that should be just left like it is, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't change that at all. Maybe redirect the roads a bit, but other than that, just keep it just like it is. You
Yeah.
know, it's so pretty.
It
and
is.
just want to keep it big open space, and it could be used, potentially for music events, maybe it's kind of a natural setting for an amphitheater. You know. So it could be just like that. Then one of the things that I think we've heard, over and over again is how important open space is to everybody. That's come back in all the surveys and workshops and stuff that we've had. So in this particular plan, we see a number of areas where open space really is opened up. One is kind of on the north-south corridor, all through it. So you could just see looking all the way, you know, from the sledding hill all through the campus, all the way to the north.
Yeah.
And that would all be open green space. And then I think the other thing we have to keep in mind too is that the properties outside of this core campus, like there's a big field to the north as you go toward the Dover-Sherborne Regional School. It's a big open field.
Gorgeous.
Gorgeous
Again,
field,
beautiful,
rolling hills.
stunning vista.
And then the two big properties on the east side and the west side, all of that really, you know, it constitutes probably 200 acres of open space. So there's lots of open space that this plan would have in it. And I think everybody wants that.
Now, the pieces on the left and the right of the main campus are state-owned.
They're correct.
We don't own them, but they can only be used for agriculture.
Agriculture,
that's-
passive, and open space, right?
And you're including that
Yep.
in yeah,
Because I think it's very
Yeah.
very much part of the hospital.
right.
Then one area that we're still discussing really is the area which we call the southeast quadrant. You know, so it's kind of when you come in Stonegate if you drive in, and there's some old cottages in that area. And one possibility is for scenario one is to put in cottages. You know,
Right.
small cottages. Maybe designed for seniors, people interested in downsizing. But there's also beautiful, you know, big oak trees and maple trees and other just natural setting in that area that we
Right.
don't want to destroy at
No.
all.
No.
So, but that's still kind of what we do with that's one of the options we're talking about. And then the other thing that is on this scenario one is the area to the west of the campus, and we call it kind of the outer ring, you know.
Yeah.
But we think that that could be an excellent place for senior living. You know, senior, maybe it could be assisted living, it could be a CCRC, could be nursing care, could be memory care, some sort of thing like that. That's part of it. Now, just to give you an idea of what the actual architectural design looks like, we have a picture here that shows the actual buildings and actually, you know, shows the layout. And you can see the big open space on the south end there. That would be the town square. Now, without going into a lot of detail, let me just say a few comments about scenario two and how it differs, because it just differs in some ways, right? The big difference is that, first of all, we call this one rural village. Okay, I don't know, it's more rural, more agriculture, I guess, you know, more of the tradition of the hospital. But in this case, in this scenario, as you pointed out, that what the senior living would be actually put into that space right in the middle of the campus. So it'd have access. I mean, that's one of the big features to it, you know, that people can walk to the cultural center, walk around, you know, so they're right in the middle of the hubbub of everything, and that's sort of one of the features of this. So, and one of the main differences is the location of that. We still have the Arts Cultural Center. In this case, actually, in scenario two, it's a bit bigger. But one of the distinguishing things is that it's more focused on agriculture. You know, both the fields to the north, you know, could be put into maybe farming. It was used as part of the old farm, you know.
Yeah.
And even we'll get to this in a minute, but across the road, across Hospital Road to the south, you could have greenhouses or, you know, community gardens or tractor sheds, you know, equipment sheds, that type of thing. So it would have more of that rural agricultural, you know, flavor to it. And there's some differences in the numbers, but there's not a lot, really. So
No,
that's some of the
there
distinguishing
really isn't.
features.
In terms of residential, yeah.
Let me just keep going and just say a word about the sledding hill. Okay, so now you cross Hospital Road, and we've shown here a map of scenario one again. And we think that that's a very logical place for a sports and recreational facility. Now, just to be really clear about it too. We don't want to do anything that destroys the sledding hill, you know?
Right.
I mean, it's a
We're
beautiful
keeping the
location.
sledding hill.
Right.
No one has to worry about that.
No,
Yeah.
because people like to slide downhill, or they like to play golf frisbee, or do all sorts of stuff.
That's
you know,
a big part of Medfield.
and just see the sunsets.
Yeah,
you know?
it's amazingly
Or ski,
stunning.
or you know, snowshoe, or whatever. You know?
Right,
So it's used for
right.
lots of stuff. But there's still quite a bit of property when you go kind of behind where that sledding hill is, and going further south where it could fit, you know, a sports and recreation facility. And because it's close to McCarthy Field or McCarthy Park,
Yeah, it does make sense.
kind of makes sense, I think, to do it. But put it in the back there. And I know Parks and Rec are doing studies, you know, to look
Right.
at the market for this kind of thing. And, you know, they're talking about a building of 23,000 square feet, something like that. And outdoor, you could put more athletic fields in, you know, lacrosse or baseball or soccer, of maybe another 35,000 square feet. So you're talking about a piece of that area, not the whole thing, but a piece of it, and then you'd have to, you know, provide for parking in that area. You could have an option to that, as I'd mentioned, you know, as opposed to doing that, you could make that agriculture. You know,
Right.
after all, that's where the farm
That
is.
was the original.
That was where they all were, right? And they
Yeah.
had
Wasn't there a
fields
big
and
barn and?
barns,
Yeah.
cattle, and orchards, big apple orchard up there, and you know, so you could try to bring that back too. So I would say that's still one of these things where we're kind of debating
We're
it.
debating it. And the other thing with the Park and Recreation building, there's a permanent building committee that's also weighing in on, you know, trying to plan out for the future what buildings we need to build when. And they're looking at that as well. So.
Right, right. And then just going to the other properties that I'd mentioned that are the Hinckley Farm, the old Hinckley Farm,
Right.
and Medfield and Ice House Road. I think we're really converged now on what we want to do with there. And it would be affordable senior housing. And I think that the map here under this particular scenario 1 is showing something like 42 units on Ice House Road 3, Lot 3, back, you know, where just beyond Kingsbury. And then something like maybe 15 to 16 small cottages on the Hinckley Farm, and we've surveyed that, so we know what kind of the wetlands are, and it'd be right next door to the Kingsbury Club, so it's an ideal location for that.
And across from the senior center.
And across
which
from the senior
is,
center. Yeah.
You know, very convenient.
Yeah, and then connected by the Bay Circuit Trail. I think we show that as this
Yep.
little dashed blue line on the map, you know, that you could, you know, have walks and hikes through the woods and walk over to the main campus and that type of thing. So
Yep.
I think that's kind of gone from something was kind of up in the air, and we're kind of debating it back and forth now to something which is more, I think,
Agreed
we're coming
upon.
to an agreement.
Yes.
Agreement upon.
Yeah.
Right. Now let me just, I don't want to get into too much of the numbers, but just to give people a sense of what we're talking about. This picture here shows kind of some of the parameters for it, mainly based on scenario 1. And as I said, the variation isn't that great between 1 and 2, and we're refining it. I should emphasize too that all of this is under, you know, constant discussion, debating, and everything,
yes.
tweaking it, right?
Yeah.
Trying to optimize it and, you know, look at the numbers more, financial impacts, that type of thing. But to give an idea, under scenario 1, the total housing count on the main campus, which would mainly be in that arc around the core campus, would be something on the area of 200 to 220 or 30 units, which is like half of what DCAM
way
had
back.
proposed before.
Right.
So it's housing, yeah, it's mixed-use housing, but it's catered to meet the specific, you know, interests and needs in the
Correct.
town. And it's not, you know, a big high-rise apartment complex.
And the needs that were stated by the community, which were senior housing,
Yep.
you know, and housing for people who are 55 and older. and maybe some millennials.
Yep.
Because it's so hard
Yep.
for millennials to
Yeah.
move into this
Yeah.
town.
Yeah.
So
I think one of the things
smaller housing.
that people are concerned about is not overloading the school system.
Right.
You know, the infrastructure.
Yes.
Schools and stuff. So I don't think this would do it. You know, it'd be designed more for people retiring or older people, seniors, millennials maybe, but not having a big impact on the school system,
Right,
which would
right.
be expensive. And then, as I'd mentioned, we would have affordable senior housing on Hinckley and Ice House Road. And that's really important now because of this 40B
Yeah.
concerns in the town.
Reaching safe harbor is
And
a
reaching-
big issue. And yes, so that would satisfy that.
It'd make a good contribution to it. It wouldn't solve the whole housing 40B requirements
Right.
from the state, but it would make a big contribution to it. It really would help out a lot. And the other thing, maybe just to mention too, is that I think we're very interested in diversity, and one of the things is to have a group home or two for people with developmental disabilities. There's not really a good solution for that around here, and we could accommodate that into the hospital. So we'd have one or two what we call group homes that meets that need, or helps meet it, at least it addresses it, and also contributes to the 40B, because that'll count for 40B. So you get kind of
Yeah.
a double
Get it.
double benefit from
Right.
it. And then the cultural and art space, you know, and I've given sort of estimates of that, but we're talking about 20,000 square feet of arts and cultural space. That could be more. Under scenario B, it's more than that, so it could be larger. But we've done some nice architectural studies of how the Lee Chapel could be renovated
Yeah.
and connected to the building next to it, you know.
And the
so-
Lee Chapel is an amazing piece of architecture.
Yeah.
It's a gorgeous,
Yeah.
lovely building,
And then
inside and out.
And then space, and then the other thing is space for retail and commercial and the sports and the athletic space. So I think, I think in just thinking about the scenarios now, I think we've come a long way
Oh, a long
over
way.
the last
Right.
few years and all. And I think that a lot more is sort of under agreement, you know, under consensus. And we've reached kind of a convergence. You know, I felt, I think for the, you know, the last 6 months or something, that we're really starting to converge into a solution that meets all the needs we've heard. You
Or
know.
most of the needs.
Or most of
You
them,
know,
right.
you know, the intention is really to satisfy as many of the wants of the community as is possible, you know, and
Right.
I think that, I think that we have made tremendous progress, and I think we saw that at the May 24th meeting, in terms of, you know, feedback, and I can try, if you, I can do-
Maybe you could say a few words about
Yeah.
the kind of what we heard basically at that
Right,
meeting.
so basically, you know, on the 24th, we had people break down into small, you know, the small groups and discuss the two scenarios, and they had a number of ways to give their feedback. And what we basically heard from them was we did hear some consensus. You know, again, like you said, the 42 units on Lot 3, people liked that. The small homes on Hinckley, I think you pretty much went over those points. But what was most striking about our feedback was that in the past, we would hear a lot about, you know, a concern that, you know, for historic preservation. You know, they were worried about the buildings. People were worried that we were going to tear them down. So we would hear that. And we would hear concern that, you know, we need to do something towards our 40B safe harbor. That was another big concern. And also high density. People did not want high density. And I think that's why the DCAM, I mean, this is my opinion, the DCAM one failed, because people just 400 units or 400 plus were just not what they wanted. So high density was an issue. And also increases in the school budget. So those were the things we heard over and over and over again. But at this meeting on May 24th, we didn't hear that. So Kerry Hewlett made a wonderful point about all of that. She is one of our consultants from the Consensus Building Institute. We didn't hear it because these scenarios have taken those concerns into consideration. And, you know, we've addressed those concerns in the scenarios. I think what we're hearing now, or what we heard on the 24th, are more concerns about, I mean, people are looking for financials, and we are planning on getting the financial information to them. There was a little concern about, oh, do I have to choose between 1 and 2? No. You know, it's gonna be, probably the end product is gonna be kind of a meld, a melding of these two options. And the other thing is, we were hearing a lot about, like, where will I park? You know, where will I park?
Important consideration.
Yeah. You know, how will I get in and out?
Right.
You know, access. Where will people shop? So people were really, and this is another point Kerry made, people are envisioning themselves living, working, visiting there. So they've moved, you know, we've all progressed. The community, the committee, we have all progressed to this convergent point where, you know, we can see the end of the tunnel. You know, we can see what might be up there, you know, on this amazing piece of property.
Yeah, and I think we can see it with the beautiful buildings, you know, preserving the architectural, you know, attractiveness of the buildings and of the way the campus is actually laid out. Not destroying that, but keeping it, but bringing it up to uses for, you know, our century, basically, and our future centuries, and that's important.
The layout is historic.
Right.
The layout was so well thought out.
Yeah, and the river, you know, looking out over the Charles
and
in the back.
Vistas. And it was all part of the plan.
Yeah.
So to bring that forward into this century and beyond will be a good thing.
Good. Well, maybe I could just say a few words then about where we're going.
Yes.
You know, what's next and all. And we have a chart here that gives kind of the time frame of where we are starting in July now.
Yeah.
And a number of things are going on. There's lots to do. I mean, we have very detailed work plans that show all the steps that have to take place. And our goal now is to have
no summer vacation.
No summer vacation. No, we have to work, right? We have to have meetings all summer.
Yeah.
But the goal is to go to the town with a special town meeting in early January of 2018.
Right.
And that seems like quite a ways away, but what's going on now are, first of all, we're doing a whole series of stakeholder outreach meetings.
Right.
So we have a long list of all the groups in town that we want to have one-on-one conversations with and get a chance to talk to them directly. So that's going on. As we've mentioned, we're refining these scenarios and really converging it down into a preferred scenario. And in parallel with that, we're starting to do the financial analysis. So the two kind of go hand in glove. You have to look at what the costs are, what the impacts are going to be on the fiscal budget in the town, on tax rates and that type of thing, and then revise or balance the scenarios. So all of that work's going on. And then the other thing that's a long lead time is all the steps that have to go into zoning.
Right.
So, and there's a whole timeline of activities that have to go into the type of zoning and how it's structured, how it's reviewed by the town. So all of that work is going on. We think that we would have sort of an announcement of the preferred plan. In other words, after all of this work and effort we've put into it of what we think is a recommended plan that we would have in another community meeting or workshop, probably in the November timeframe.
Right.
That's our plan, and then using that time period, particularly in the fall and winter, to meet with all of the official groups and committees that we need to meet with in town, like the warrant committee and the planning committee,
Conservation committee, and
the board of the senior
the housing, yeah.
So there's a whole series
Housing
of that
authority.
we have to go through,
Right.
because this is going to be a very significant decision by the town. So that would be going on, and hopefully we can get all of that in and get it completed and wrapped up by that special town meeting, at which point the town actually formally votes on the changes, and it's the zoning changes that they're voting on. But of course, that's a function of what the plan is. You know? So you have to have the plan, you have to have the master plan, and then the zoning follows from that.
So really, people will have a good sense by November of where we're heading.
Right.
And then they'll have from November to January to really digest it. And we'll make sure that we're out there in the community informing everybody,
Right.
you know, so that there are no questions. We will answer in every way possible the concerns that are out there.
Right.
Yeah.
So you might say a little bit just to if people want to get more information,
Sure.
you know, or if they want to get in touch with us or
Yeah.
have a chance to talk to us, what can they do?
Yeah. So we have quite a few avenues for keeping in touch with us and getting information. The very first is our website, which is mshvision.net, and you will find anything that you want on that website. Minutes of our meetings, newsletters, everything. A ton of information on there. You can also sign up for our newsletter from the website, and we have a weekly newsletter that goes out. We probably have 1,500 or more people on that newsletter right now, and we keep the community up to date on all the latest that the committee is doing. We're on social media, so we have a Facebook page, we're on Instagram, and we are on Twitter. So we push out the information, the newsletters go out through those social media channels. And you know, whatever is current, we push out on those channels as well. So again, on Facebook, we're MSH Vision on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram. So we have all those ways to keep up. You can send an email through the MSH Vision page. And we are always sending articles to the local newspapers.
And also, of course, we have regular monthly meetings on the first and third Wednesdays of every month at 7 to 9 or 10.
Right, right.
7 o'clock's when they start.
They can last still a bit long.
And they're at the conference
but
room.
They're fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Pretty lively meetings, but
Yeah.
they're fun. But everybody is welcome to come to those
Right.
meetings. And again, it's at the Department of Public Works, and they have a nice conference room. So
They have a great one.
it's in the new building there, and we have the meetings there. So you're all welcome to come to them.
Right, everyone can attend those. And I have to say, I am a resource member, and I am so incredibly impressed with the skills and the talents of the Master Planning Committee. I mean, the selectmen chose, you know, the committee members very, very well. I mean, the depth of experience is tremendous. So I just want to say that. And also, of course, the last way of keeping informed is to look out for these Our Town, Our Land, Our Future tapings. And whenever there's something really interesting, Gil and I will do an episode. We may interview someone that is important to the mix.
Yeah.
And this is just one other way that we're trying to communicate.
And I think, I've really enjoyed doing this so much with you. It's
Yeah.
been lots of fun. We've learned a lot.
Yeah.
I think it's been a valuable thing for the community, but it's also been enjoyable.
Right.
And thank you for all that.
Well, thank you. So, and thank you for watching.
The preceding was a production of Medfield TV, Community Shows.